week. How are
Exactly.
you? How was the weekend? All good?
I'm good. Yes, I'm good, Simona. I had a relaxing weekend for
Yeah.
once, which is felt fantastic actually. So I come back with a lot of life this beautiful Monday, I would say.
So yeah. And how is the
Yeah,
company iGaming? Everything good?
yeah, everything's fine. Like, yeah, we are super busy in general at the moment.
Yeah.
Trying to get all the projects on par, try to get everything working, and everyone pulling the same direction and these things, but things are looking, we work with a lot of positive momentum now,
Mm.
so it's always easier to work when you work with positive momentum rather than when everything is just shit. Basically, I
Exactly.
mean, yeah, so it's nice to have that momentum, it's let's say, to work with, and
Yeah.
then it's everything just becomes easier,
Yeah. And now especially also it's the summer, so it's your season when it comes to also the ambassador event. So
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So yeah, so it's nice that we got the opportunity to do some events this summer, and they are very popular now because there aren't really that much going on. So we have never really been reliant on tourists for our event. So for us, it's actually a lot easier this year to
Mm.
do events than it usually is. So even like showers and these events, like they look much better than they usually are actually. So it's a relief. It's a relief for us as well that we can do that side as well. So we
Mm.
keep our employees busy on that side too,
You know,
So
but it's a real pleasure to have you here, because as we are talking about your events are definitely one of the biggest and the most popular on the island, and you're very humble person, I can say, but it's very interesting to get your insight, especially when it comes to the events industry. And we know that there's no doubt that this pandemic will or has massive impact on the industry events. So today I would like to discuss with you, the how basically the iGaming industry is coping with the corona, and what does the future holds for itself, events industry, right? But can you tell us, please, what made you to do the events for the iGaming community back in the days when you have started?
yeah, so basically, I've events running my blood, Simona, and since I was 18 years old, I was the one who, organized the New Year's Eve trip to Tallinn for 20 of my friends, and it came natural to me, and I love doing that. So being in the iGaming industry quite early, I mean, I started when I was like 17, 18. I ran a poker club in Sweden, and I came into iGaming from there. And when I moved to Malta, I got hired from Betsson to organize their customer events, which was pretty much the time of my life at that time, I would say, traveling around with all the customer events, and I became friends with a lot of our players at that time as well, and we just had the best time ever, pretty much. Um, but yeah, after that, we felt me and Martin, we talked, and we felt that let's try to do something together. Let's see if we can start something on our own, and see if we can make it work. It was purely driven by passion. Like, we didn't really care about making any form of profits or anything like that. um, we just had a blast. We just had fun. But then after a couple of years, then it kind of came to a point where now we have to somehow make this work financially as well. And that's when we started to organize more events for the iGaming industry specifically. And since then, we have been doing more and more towards the iGaming industry. And now, obviously, we do not only the corporate events, but we have our conference, iGaming Next. We have the award show, iGaming Idol, and yeah, more and more as we get older. It's less parties and more conferences, let's say.
I know, like, I mean, because you as that humble, maybe it's going to be difficult for you to tell, but what do you think, what makes your events stand out from the others? Because your events have really longevity. So
Yeah, yeah, that's a million-dollar question. I haven't thought about that myself, I guess, but no, no, we've
because
been
you're
fortunate.
organizing the events on the island basically over the decade. I think it's going to be decade, right?
Yeah, I lived in Malta now for 9 years. Martin's been here for 12, and we've run our company here for 7 years now, seven and a
Mm-hmm.
half. So that's how long we've done
Yeah.
the events. And I mean, during this time, I think it's quite easy, Simona, in reality. I mean, we've been consistent with the events that we've been doing. We go in with a good heart, you know. We try to deliver what we promise. We try to do the best we can in each project, and so far that has been going well, and we have been able to deliver on our promises. So I think when you do that over time, you build up a certain reputation and things like that. So when we launch a new project, generally we are fortunate enough that the industry tends to believe us, you know, based on our previous experiences and successes and so forth. And that is really everything, especially on a small island like Malta and a tight industry like the Igaming industry, where everyone kind of knows each other. If we would screw something up, we would immediately be cut off from this goodwill that we have at the moment, you know. So that's why we need to be very careful, especially in this time, you know, during COVID.
The word goes very fast on Malta, right? It goes very.
It's a lot of rumors. I mean, there's always people talking. At one point, there was a rumor that me and Martin was a couple, and this thing. I mean, people say a lot of things.
Let me to think about it.
Yeah, maybe now when I think about it, I think me and Martin would be a good married couple, actually. Yeah.
Actually, how are you getting along? You know, because we're working together, not only in the Igaming industry, but I think in general in the business, running together the business 7 years, and in very like a small group of the people, it has to be quite, you know, interesting.
Yeah, we always joke that we are like a married couple, me and Martin, you know, for better and for worse. And, you know, we have found a way to work really well together now in the years. You know, we have our conflicts from time to time, and we have, like any couple, like any relationship, you know, you learn how to navigate that and to try to make the best of it, you know. But I mean, I love Martin. You know, we are good because we have different strengths, you know. I am strong in certain things, and Martin is strong in other things, and then we learn how to what areas of expertise we should own. You know, this is
well, like definitely I infuse some rumors with this interview, but let's leave like that. But you know, as you have mentioned already before, you have launched this year, you know, 3 new digital projects with the Igaming Next. So can you tell us a bit more about those, and how did you come up with this interesting concept?
Yeah, so I mean, we have completely revamped our business now at this stage, I would say. I mean, the event industry in general, I think, is an interesting industry because it's like a legacy industry. It's like nothing has changed in this industry for 100 years. You know, when you go to a conference, you're still exchanging these like paper business cards, and I mean, it's very low tech, this industry. So it was a shock, you know, for the entire industry when this happened, and kind of having to transition this quick, you know. And some are doing that better than others. You know, some are embracing this digital side of the events, and others are not. And I think that the organizations who will come out on top of this are the ones who can be innovative in a very traditional industry, and that's what we try to do. So the 3 products that we have launched, the Igaming NEXT podcast, which is now the biggest podcast of the Igaming industry, the Igaming NEXT Power Hour, which is a weekly digital event that we do, like an Igaming fix every week that you can get, and then our big event in October, which is called the Igaming NEXT Online. These 3 events are our response to COVID, basically, and what has happened, and also our very like our basic predictions that we think that this year is just a write-off for in-person events, for in-person mass events. We don't think that it's a good idea to even think about organizing large-scale events this year. So that's why we have taken our small and very committed team, and we have tried to just be innovative and create these new products, not only for this time right now, but we try to create something that has more longevity as well, because there's a feeling a lot, I think, that about these digital events, that they are just a temporary replacement for the absence of in-person events. But we think that's the wrong way to look at it. We think that there should be concepts that can transcend the COVID situation that we can continue to organize even afterwards as well. So those are the projects that we take that in mind, and then we launch those type of projects that we feel have more longevity within them as well, not just a temporary substitute. So that's what they are.
Exactly. In fact, I really like that you pointed out in the beginning that, you know, like it's such a paradox that in this industry, like we heard the word innovation so much, right? But it's not actually that much innovation is going on when it comes to, you know, like, you know, the let's say, like in a real sense, the innovation. And as you said, you know, the times are changing and we're living in really unprecedented times. But as you already pointed out, you're refraining as a company from the hosting any physical events, despite being legally allowed to do so. So do you think the other organizers are being irresponsible bits to go ahead with others, with the events?
Yeah, that's a interesting question. Yeah. No, so I think that I think this is a decision that we have taken based on our circumstances in general, you know, and we think that you know, the event that we had planned was in end of September, and this is, you know, very, very soon, you know, for us to commit to an event like that. There are other events happening later in the year, and I understand why you don't want to take a decision right now for those events, but eventually, when we have more information, when we know more how this will play out, those organizers will have to take decisions as well. You know, I know that there is some other events happening within this time frame as well, and I can't really say their motivations why they would organize, you know, an expo in September, for example. But I see it as very, very difficult to pull an event like that off this early in the year. And we saw now G2E, they obviously canceled their big show in Vegas now as well in October. This was expected, you know, this was always going to happen. It's just that you don't want to take that decision too lightly. You don't want to take it too early. So G2E came to a point where, you know, they had no option. They have to postpone it, and you know, they should have credits for doing that. And similarly, now as we go into the later part in the year, it will become more clear if it is possible or not to organize events later in the year, because we don't know. It's not that we know for sure that things are going to be really bad in autumn or winter. It's just that we don't know, you know, and that is the tricky part right now.
And I think that, you know, as I said, you know, I think that, you know, even the companies and the clients, and the iGaming, they feel honesty from your side as a company, and that you are trying to do, you know, genuinely great even, and you don't want to disappoint anyone. And especially, you know, as a person who was working in iGaming in marketing department, you know, there is a lot of work and hours, you know, put into the shows, as from your side, even the client side, you know. So I think it's definitely a right way to go. But as you're the person who has really long-term experience in live events, and now you jump into the digital one, can you tell me, is it a challenge to encourage people to engage with the digital events compared to live ones?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have asked me a year ago, you know, I would have said that it's impossible. You know, people are just not used to this way of doing conferences, or this way of networking, or this way of consuming information. But you know, to some degree, the Corona situation is a little bit of a blessing in disguise, in the sense that because of this, people and the industry have been forced to attend these events. And even this type of call that we have now, you know, I mean, you guys are doing super cool job, Simona, with your interviews that you are doing, but we wouldn't have seen, but we wouldn't have seen this before Corona, you know, because now people are used to having Skype calls, people are used to having Zoom calls to a much higher degree than before. And the same goes for the digital events, that we are now becoming used to this being a part of the offering, and this being a way to consume information. So it's a lot easier now, let's say, to organize these digital events, just because people know what they can expect from them, and they know that there is really great content to be had during these events. They are very interactive. It's really fun to engage with the audience and with the other speakers and so forth. So it's been kind of a learning curve for the industry to get used to these digital events, and from here on out, it's now easier to then convince people to actually pay attention to the events.
And let's not pretend that it's the same thing. That we can't pretend that the digital events is the same thing or can replace the live ones. So maybe you can tell us like what are the pros and cons of each concept, and how they can coexist together.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there is no one, I think, who would ever think that the digital events will ever replace the in-person events, because, like you rightly say, the face-to-face interaction, the human interaction, is something you cannot replace in that regard. However, there are pros and cons with both sides. I mean, in-person event, like you say, the networking is far superior in the sense that you can get much closer to individuals. Like you get a real personal connection with people when you meet them in person. However, on the digital side, I would say that first of all, you don't have the geographical restrictions, so it's very easy to attend a digital event, which means that even anyone in the industry or even anyone outside of the industry who would like to learn more or to get into the industry and to learn and to see who the people are behind in the C-level teams and things like that, it's much easier to access the same content through the digital event. You don't have the same costs, you don't have the same time commitments. I have to fly and then spend 3 days in some crappy town somewhere. I don't know.
You don't have that much hangovers as well.
No hangovers. I would say if you can solve that, if we can send drinks through the somehow through the digital side to each other, then there will be no more in-person events. That's it. The alcohol is what's missing. But yes, you're right. So there are pros and cons with both, of course. The accessibility and the simplicity of attending a digital event, and the fact that you can interact so easily with speakers and with other delegates, makes the digital events far superior when it comes to knowledge sharing and learning. They are much better than in-person events, I would say. So yes,
you're getting focused much. You're getting people much more focused, I guess, by the digital events, right?
Yes, I mean both yes and no. I mean the biggest competitor when we have a digital event is not other digital events. It is Facebook, it is LinkedIn, it is your inbox, because that is where we are fighting for attention. I mean, so during a digital event, you're not gonna have anyone who is like 4 hours from beginning to end listening to your content. They will do many things at the same time, and they listen in from time to time. So so from that perspective, that is the attention that we are fighting on. And in an in-person event, you might be more tuned in to that situation. So but on the other hand, you can interact a lot more in the digital environment, so you can fact check ideas as they are being talked about. You can ask questions, follow-up questions, and so forth, a lot easier.
So, and talking about the impact, it's clear that the COVID-19 is going to have a very long-term impact. So how do you see actually this crisis affecting the iGaming industry itself? And we can talk about in Malta's case.
Yeah. So so obviously I am in the event industry, not in the, but I've been around the iGaming industry long enough to kind of understand a little bit of the industry at least. I mean, for the most obvious impact is obviously on the B2C side. We see certain products are being more impacted than others. Obviously, sports betting is still a question mark.
Yeah.
When is it going
when
to
it's going to resume? It's not looking that this year, because the second wave, I mean, like especially like every single time we talk to each other, there's all the time new updates. Like every 2-3 days, there's new cases in different countries, Australia, UK, the New Zealand, and even here in Europe, Bulgaria, Serbia. So There's all the time
Yeah.
new cases, so we don't even know what's going to happen with sports even.
Exactly, it's unpredictable. That's the whole thing right now. Even though we're getting more information, it's just a lot of unpredictability, and there's spikes in certain countries, and we don't know what's going to happen in autumn and so forth. But in general, for the iGaming industry, the industry is very resilient. I was in the industry in 2008 as well, 2007 during the financial crisis, and the industry was hardly impacted at all. This was during the poker boom, in the good times there. And similarly, now, from a consumer point of view, the industry is still there. People who want to gamble will still gamble. However, the dangers now is on the regulatory side. And this is where the industry will be impacted, and it's already impacted heavily. We've seen Sweden imposing strict deposit limits, Lithuania closing down the market, Spain is now banning any form of gaming sports advertisement. The UK is following suit. The regulators are almost competing who can be the toughest at the moment, and this is where we will see effects. But saying that, I think that this is also an opportunity for the industry, because this would have happened anyway. It's just that it's coming sooner than we thought, and I think that it might hurt, it might sting a lot now for the operators to navigate this market. But if you can persevere, if you can focus on player protection, if you can be compliant, if then on the other side of that, if we can solve player protection, then the stigma will start lessening. There's a lot of stigma of the industry right now, and there's always been, to be frank. But if we can focus a lot more on player protection and get the message out there how much the industry is actually protecting the players now, that means that the stigma will lessen in general, and I think then that the culture will be, iGaming is never going to be like the heroes in any way, but at least if we are not the villains anymore, I think that is something that will pave way for a much brighter future eventually.
Exactly. I mean, we're never gonna be the industry which is like cheered, by the public, but we can make the situation, we can get the discussion going on, right, with between the regulators and the politicians and the governments. And I have to use the fact that you're the Swedish and you were talking about the regulations, in different countries, but how do you specifically feel about the Swedish situation? Because it's a drama. It's drama going on there, right? So specifically about the Sweden, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, Sweden is interesting because gambling is very much in our DNA. We are grown up with gambling in many different ways. And
okay.
I can speak for myself. I mean, we played poker when we were 4 years old. Everyone knows how that works, and similarly with sports betting is very, very ingrained in our culture. So betting gambling is a part of our lives in Sweden. And I mentioned that the poker boom, during the poker boom 2004 to 2008, something like that, the height of the poker boom, gambling and gaming was very much respected from the poker perspective during that time. There was a whole movement at that time that were pushing for gambling to be legal, to be able to organize poker games legal and things like that. So it is possible to create that kind of environment in the culture. But the problem then is why the whole society has turned against gambling at the moment, and I think rightly so, is because the extremely aggressive marketing that has been done in Sweden over the last 5 years or so, I would say. Every single advertisement space, whether you are on the subway, whether you're on the watching TV, whether you're on the internet, is just constantly giving you messages that like win quick, withdraw quick, get your money, buy something nice, all your dreams will come true if you play here and there. And that extremely aggressive marketing became a massive needle in the eye in the Swedish culture. And very quickly, the iGaming industry went from a pretty low-key industry that wasn't really, everyone knew about it, but not that many people talked about it in general, to being this, dragon in the Swedish culture that had to be slayed, basically. And it was then up to the politicians to now kind of slay this dragon, or to tame the dragon, rather, I would say it, because there is now the regulation. So that's kind of my thoughts on Sweden now. And now it's time to turn this around, I think. And I think it is turning around now too.
I mean, we're gonna see definitely in the next 2-3 months how the situation will resume. But I'm very thankful, Pierre, that you mentioned actually this point, that like about the very aggressive marketing, because sometimes we as the professionals in the iGaming industry in Malta, we're living in this kind of the bubble, and we don't really realize what's going on, especially inside of those markets. Like what's happening in the UK, how the perspective of the people, of the public is, and what the perception is. And exactly, it was great to hear that a lot of stuff changed in the past 5 years when it comes to the Sweden. And do you think the people get bothered by that as well?
If they get bothered by it?
Yeah.
Sorry?
If
Yes.
the people.
Yeah, no, I do. It is this extremely aggressive marketing. I mean, we have to remind ourselves. It's something Jesper Scherbrink mentioned just the other day, is that only a few percentage points of the Swedish population actually plays online gambling, and for them, the vast majority is a great entertainment. They enjoy it. They have fun. They get entertainment from what they do, and that is what the industry should be. But then for this other, 90+% of the Swedish population, they kind of look down on what is happening a bit because of the marketing, I think. So when it is this message, win big, get your dreams through, then immediately most of the population connects that to something bad, and that is then going to be, then you start kind of looking down on the people who do play eventually, because you see this, the only thing you see about online gambling is this extremely aggressive marketing. That's it just comes across very negative. So yes, they are, of course, you get bothered by that, and this constant push of this kind of useless marketing. But I think it's changing now. Like I said, the companies are understanding that they should bring more value through their marketing campaigns, and create more interesting content, and focus more on the entertainment side of the industry, not so much that make your dreams come true kind of thing. And I think it's changing. So I think we are past the worst point when it comes to the stigmatization of the industry in Sweden.
Yeah, the conversation's open for sure. And talking about the Malta as a hub, do you think that we're gonna see the hubs like Malta see their resident iGaming staff decline as more companies and brands remote working? Because I think you're a great person to talk about this, as you're organizing as well the HR events.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So within our organization, we run an HR organization called HR Connect. So this basically connects all the HR executives within the iGaming industry in Malta to discuss just these things that you mentioned now. They are very open with each other, which is something that I love about this industry. Everyone from competitors comes together for the better of the industry, and that's something we really need to nurture as an industry and promote more. So this happens through trade associations, this happens through HR Connect that we have, this happens through all the events that we all go to and discuss, and these type of things. But yeah, so to your question of what's going to happen with Malta as a hub for gaming in Europe, I think definitely Malta will continue to be a hub for gaming in Europe. But I think just like anywhere else in the world, remote gaming, remote work is here to stay. I think I would like to be bold and make that claim, actually. And I think that we are entering a new era now post-COVID, which is, it's accelerated as well. I think it would have happened sooner or later anyway, but this new era will push us more towards virtual working environments. It will push us more to, even from an individual basis, now that we all have experienced what it means to work from home, I think a lot more people are open to that. And the surveys have been made within HR Connect, and that confirms that too, that something like 90+% of employees wants to work somewhat from home, even going forward, you know. And it's been proven that we can work from home. It's been proven that we can keep keep productivity high and so forth. And not only that, but you know, before COVID, I think this is interesting point, because before COVID, there wasn't that much discussion on, you know, should organizations go remote or something. There was more a discussion of, should we shorten the work hours? You know, there was this movement, you know, should we have a 6-day work, 6-hour work day?
Yeah.
You know, it has been discussed, and this has been like, okay, that is the future, 6-hour work days. And the reason for that is obviously, you know, you get more free time, you can relax more as a person, and then you can come to work and you can be productive for 6 hours. You know, but I think what is happening now is that rather than saying that we're going to shorten the work day, it's like, well, if we can work from home, we don't have to commute to and from work. We can do we have a lot more time in general on our hands outside of work hours, and this gives us that more freedom actually to when we work from home. Then we can ask ourselves, like, what will, if this now will start happening, what will be the function of an office? Because maybe just because you have 500 employees doesn't mean that you need to have 500 chairs, you know. Maybe it will mean that the office will just be a space where you meet and you network and with the other employees, and you share ideas and you meet each other, and you have think tanks or little mini conferences or mini meetings or things like that. But maybe the whole idea of an office is somewhere where you sit in front of a computer for 9 hours will start changing. And there are already organizations that have taken that step. Actually, it's that even within gaming, who are now going to start moving towards a remote working environment where the whole idea of an office will actually change. So this is actually happening now. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, as you said, without this crisis and without this all the COVID-19, we would never be pushed, you know, to the space like this, and especially the headspace. And I think even the decision makers, the company's decision makers, start to think like okay, this works. It can work. You know, the people can work in remote way, and I think we're gonna see the new trends coming in. You know, I was talking to you about, you know, this. I see this trend about like a 15-minute meeting. You know, because let's be honest, you know, sometimes we are stuck on the meetings 45 hours. It's not productive. You know, we're not coming with any results. Or you coming to the office, you're having a coffee, then you're checking your emails, then you get on the meeting. Oops, it's already lunch break, right? So I think that, you know, that a lot of decision makers are getting to the point when they are finding out that the people can be effective, you know, at home. And it's really great to see that actually the companies not try to companies understand that it's not about if you are sitting in office for 8 hours, right? It's about actually how productive you are, and it's great. But you know, now, you know, it comes to my mind, what do you think about actually the education? Because, you know, as we know, the education in general, it's falling apart. The system, you know, we were in when we were in the school is falling apart. So what do you think, what trends or which trends and innovations are going to be in the education?
Yeah, I mean, Simona, I mean, we are old enough, both you and me, to, you know, when we went through school, it was like we read school books and everyone read the same book, and that was the information that you kind of had at hand, you know, at that point. So like, this is what you can learn, and now we learn it and memorize it. I mean,
and memorize and memorize and memorize.
Memorize. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have many opinions about this, so I'm not gonna talk forever about it. But I mean, memorizing is just one form of intelligence, obviously, and what the school, this is not related to iGaming specifically, but like, I think what the school is lacking in general is to prepare you for life. You know, what does it? How do you keep your finances? You know, how do you take care of your relationships? You know, when you are heartbroken, how do you deal with that? I mean, these soft skill in life is not something that school teaches you in general. I mean, and I can talk about it for a long time, but I'm not gonna go into that too much. But I think first of all, that's what school is lacking, to learn soft skills as a human being. How do you become a good critically thinking human being? And especially in this day and age with social media, and we are just bombarded with information. How do you critically understand what information is good and what is not good? These type of things, it's going to become more and more important, I think, in educational systems and those things. And I mean, now when things go more and more remote, I mean, there's just so much information that you can get as a person now. I mean, Khan Academy is a great example of that. You know, you can get a full university level degree for free. Exactly. through Khan Academy. It's incredible. I mean, maybe that will be the more and more the future in general. That's hard to say, but yes, the school definitely needs to change with the time, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like, especially, you know, these days, I see the huge, I mean, trend. I can't really say that it's a trend, but that we see the people burn out, right? And people talk about that more and more, because we are the generation of the people, because we grew in certain way we should be, you know. I think we are like all this generation of the millennials, if we can call. So we are like in the between, you know. We are the generation of between. We are not the millennials, right? But we are not even the generation who mechanically work. And I see that a lot of people just, you know, especially in their 30s, early 30s, they just burn out, and they're realizing that they want to do something they are passionate about. They do not want to work mechanically. And I see us as a generation of the people who just burn out, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, this is this is a fact, of course. You know that as we move into technological advancements, we become more and more productive. You know, through the various tools that we're using, we are more and more connected. We work quicker and quicker. We have more responsibility to shoulder all the time, and the tempo is all the time increasing. But I wanted to make a point, actually, because you said something interesting, like we are like the last generation millennials, and it's true. And we are now becoming the older generation, Simona, I have realized recently. And the way I realized this is because I was attending this digital event called Collision the other week. And Collision is like the biggest tech conference in North America. And they ran this digital event that we wanted to study a little bit, because we wanted to see, you know, how they did that event. And one of the talks that they had were of this like 20-year-old CEO who is a content creator for different brands, and they focus on TikTok.
Okay.
And they talked about that, like the older generation, us, are not able to do content marketing on TikTok because we are just too old. You know, we don't understand how it's done anymore. You know, so he is like 20-year-old CEO of this like content house, and they are the ones who create like all these TikTok dances. You know, and so he created this. I don't know if you've seen this, but like there's this dance. I can't do the dance, unfortunately. I'll spare you with that, but it was just so interesting to listen to that. Like, you know, our way of doing content marketing is like, okay, you know, we have a branded product, we say how beautiful it is and how great it is and whatever. But the young generation, like, they see through that. They don't give a shit about that. Like, they don't care about that. They just want to do like the TikTok dances and these type of things. And you know, he created these dances that like 50 million people have done, you know, to promote various songs or promote some content or whatever. I just thought that was quite interesting, that like we are definitely the last generation, the last millennial generation.
And let's not even talk about the esports, right? Because these kids or young people, you know, the teens and in early 20s, they're watching the esports gamers watch the playing the games in the way like I was watching Backstreet Boys, you know. I mean, you know,
which one was your favorite in the Backstreet Boys?
Back in the days, you know?
Yeah.
So So I mean, like the really times are changing, and I had this discussion with the co-founder of the Unicorn, which is the one of the biggest esports betting operators, and he was telling me that yeah, I did this company based on my son's experience, because he was like, why, hey dad, why don't you start this kind of the company, because like everyone's in this esports, and that's actually another chapter of the iGaming, because we know that that's going to be one of the biggest trends the sport betting operators will need to adapt to. But maybe
Yeah, it's
you
true.
can tell us some insights about that.
Yeah, no, just to further your point a little bit, that you said this guy started his company based on his son. That's such an interesting point, because in general now, I think especially within the field of marketing, when you try to target the younger generation, like parents who have kids that are in the Generation Z generation, they have actually an advantage as marketers, because they understand how the kids work. So kind of like for myself, I'm 32, I have no kids and whatever, so I cannot connect to how an 18-year-old consume content.
Welcome in the club. I'm 30, no kids.
yeah. So yeah, well, it is what it is, I mean. But no, we are happy anyway, I think, Simona. But it's an interesting point that, like, if you want to be a good marketer for the younger generation, make sure to get a kid or to connect with kids in some way, because then you'll have an advantage if you want to market to the upcoming generation, especially now with esports and things. It's like, yes, if you have kids who do esports, like, it's so much easier to enter that world through their eyes, and being able to understand how that market works rather than to just do it yourself. You have a huge advantage if you have kids in that regard. So that would be my number one tip if anyone wants to enter the esports market, is adopt like an 18-year-old or something, and then and live.
And talking about the future, actually, so, and it's gonna be my last question, that what do you think that the future holds for the events industry?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question. I mean, I hope that we will get past the current situation with the virus and so forth. There is no guarantees. I mean, it might be that our entire culture will change, and mass events is something that will be very difficult to organize in its entirety. Maybe it's not even going to be possible. I mean, who knows? And if there's anything that this virus has proven to us so far, it is that it's very, very difficult to say what is going to happen, and anything is possible. We see how quickly culture can change through this. So I hope that will not be the case. And I don't think that will be the case either. I think we will start going back to some form of normality. But I do think that these digital events will start living side by side with the event industry. I mean, we have already set our strategy that next year, when we do Igaming Next in person, which I hope will be okay at that time, we will run a digital twin next to it. So they will basically be happening Igaming Next in person, and Igaming Next online will be happening at the same time. And that means that we can reach a much wider audience. I think that will become a quite normal thing in the industry, in the event industry. And the rest, I think, is completely up to how this plays out in general. It will be interesting. I mean, if this continues this can very, very well continue deep into next year. And if that were to happen, it will be interesting to see what happens with, like, the major players, like the Clarions, the Terraspins, for example. How long can they go on for without doing their events? That is something that might affect global, like the global event industry. How will precautions be thought of? Right now there is this, like, basic instructions, like, keep social distance, wash your hands, and these type of things. I mean, we don't even know if that's going to have any meaningful impact on especially on indoor event where the air is circulating and things like that. So it's really hard to say how this will, when the events start resuming again now, we'll see the impact, we'll see what will happen, and from there will be adjustments in one way or the other. I don't think events in general are going anywhere. Events will always take place. We are human beings. We live for interaction. We live to be close to each other, at least most of us. And I think one way or the other, as human beings, we will find a way to connect with each other, I think.
Exactly. I think that's a wrap, Thank you so much, Pierre, for joining me here today. And I really, really appreciate that you shared with us your insights and opinions. It was very, very interesting conversation. And, it's certainly interesting to be in iGaming these days. And I'm sure that iGaming next projects will gain huge success. And thanks you again, Pierre.
Thank you so much, Simona. Anytime, it's a pleasure. And again, I want to just congratulate you on doing really cool things as well. I mean, just the fact that you're sitting in Greece right now doing these things, it just tells the story of that we are heading towards a paradigm shift in general. And congratulations on what you're doing, and keep doing what you're doing, Simona. You're doing super good.
Thank you so much. I would close it that we are the lost generation with a certain future, right?
Yes. But we are the coolest generation still.
We are the coolest.
Yes.
Exactly. Thank you, Pierre. Have a nice
Cool.
day.
You too, Simona. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.